cover their face because they're nothing but a bunch of cowards. Hello and welcome to the Blue View, where we talk about all things law enforcement. I'm your host, Randy Sutton, and
Phil Ramos.
Together we have served a lot of years in law enforcement. We talk about everything involving law enforcement here on this show, both locally here in Las Vegas and around the United States.
Yep.
Now there's a big story out of Las Vegas.
Yeah, there is.
There's an amazing video that was just released by the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department of an officer-involved shooting. And I got to tell you, this is one of the craziest, most
intense,
dramatic videos I have ever seen of an officer-involved shooting.
Yeah, you know, we've it's on YouTube. I think many people have seen it. And what it boiled down to is two murder suspects had just killed somebody in the central part of town, and the vehicle description went out, and the cops spotted the vehicle while the chase was on. And while the chase is going on, the bad guys are shooting back at the officers from the car. So, I mean, you hear the radio traffic, the officers yelling, shots fired, shots fired. I mean, clearly dangerous, armed and dangerous fleeing felons who had just committed a crime, who already showed very callous disregard for the public, not to mention the officers. And then you see the officer take his gun and start shooting at them.
Well, you know, so this video went on for about, I think it was close to 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah.
So, and the officer had activated his body-worn camera, so you get a full view of what's going on. Two suspects in the SUV.
Right.
And the officer was amazingly accurate as far as his radio traffic.
Yeah.
You know, you could tell that the adrenaline was pumping. I mean, because when it comes, first of all, pursuits are one of the most adrenaline pumping things. Now he knows that he's in pursuit of murder suspects, and they start shooting at him. They fired actually, I think, over 30 rounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we see in the video that the officer is maintaining enough distance to try and he's swerving from side to side, trying to make himself less of a target. Amazing tactics in a pursuit.
Yeah.
And then talk about what happens as they get closer to the end of it.
Well, the officer realizes they're not going to stop. They're still shooting. They're endangering everybody in the area, not to mention the cops. And so he decides he's going to close the gap, narrow the window, and he starts shooting through his windshield. And he tries to shoot outside of the car while he's driving with his left hand. He wasn't very successful at that because, you know, I mean, although we're trained to shoot weak hand barricade, it's from a moving car and you're trying to
Well, it was interesting. You could see him trying to make the decision.
Yeah.
He thought about it, and then he said, you know what? I'm going to shoot through the windshield instead.
Because you don't have the control with that weak hand. And so he closes the gap. He starts lighting up the car through his own windshield. And so people are like, oh my God, he shot through the windshield. Well, every agency has policies that dictate whether you can or you can't shoot. Number one, at a fleeing felon or a vehicle leaving you. And number two, from inside your own patrol car.
Right.
There are exceptions to that, and this typifies the exception. I mean, this was a perfectly clear-cut justification for shooting, number one, at fleeing felons, and number two, from your patrol car, inside your patrol car.
And as he opened fire, we don't know how accurate the fire was, as far as the report has not come in on if he hit the guy. But the vehicle came to a stop. It rolled a little bit, and then, I mean, this guy in pure warrior fashion, does a combat reload because he's already expended all his ammunition, reloads, and then on the move continues to. He actually assaults the vehicle. The passenger jumps out, and he accurately directs other officers to where he is hiding, where they apprehend him. But he opens fire, and I mean he doesn't let up, and killed the suspect.
And justifiably so, in my view. You know, there's going to be a lot of review and stuff like this. In fact, the administration has already come out and commended the officer for his actions. And man, I was struck by how controlled and how not incredibly excited he was on his radio traffic and his driving. You know, I mean, we've all been in pursuits, and you know that's a crazy situation. Your heart starts pumping, adrenaline's going, and your breath is out of control. But this guy maintained his composure and did a hell of a job, and my respect goes to this guy.
Oh, absolutely. And there was another officer who also engaged as the pursuit came to a close. He apparently opened fire with his shotgun. So we don't know exactly who it was that actually killed the suspect, but great job by the Metropolitan Police and by these officers in particular. I hope he gets the Medal of Honor.
Incredible job, yeah.
We got to take a break. We'll be right back with you. Hi, welcome back to the Blue View with your hosts Randy Sutton and Phil Ramos. We just talked about the amazing policing done by an officer of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, and the fact that these individuals, these murdering suspects, open fire blatantly, placing everyone in danger besides the law enforcement officers, shows you the violence that is occurring towards law enforcement. This was a very violent weekend for the American law enforcement officer all over the country.
Everywhere.
We had one murder of a police officer in Weymouth, Massachusetts, and we had 3 officers shot in Kansas, an officer shot in North Carolina, an officer shot in New Mexico. And while this is going on, you have the Waffle House employees refusing to serve police officers that go into their restaurant, showing incredible disrespect. And 4 police officers refused service in a Waffle House in Jennings, Louisiana. I don't know about you, Phil, but every time I read a headline like this, especially after a weekend, a deadly weekend like this, it incenses me.
It makes you wonder why this pervasive thought is proliferating the way it is. I mean, the disrespect towards law enforcement has just continued and continued and continued, and the confrontations are getting worse. We've seen some spineless administrators take the position of, well, we're going to prosecute cops. If it wasn't a good, clean shooting, then we're going to go take them to court. But Officer Michael Chesna, who was killed in Weymouth, you know, rest in peace, brother, his chief got out at a vigil for this officer and said, quote, "The negative attitude surrounding the police force is causing officers to hesitate, and they're being harmed." And we've spoken about this many, many times, and I know you're driving that point home.
Absolutely. Too. And this was a particular, I really am looking forward to this investigation, and because for those of you who are unaware of what happened to this Weymouth police officer, he had made a vehicle stop on I believe a suspicious vehicle or erratic driving, and the driver somehow got out of the vehicle, picked up a large rock, and attacked the officer with the rock, beating him about the head to the point where the officer couldn't defend himself.
Right.
He then retrieved the officer's firearm, killed him, and in the shooting, he also hit a 77-year-old woman and killed her. Now the question, of course, and maybe this is why this chief said this, why did this officer allow this suspect to get close enough to him, armed with a rock?
And get the jump on him, and hopefully the investigation will reveal that hesitation. But the bottom line is this is happening a lot. Cops are under attack all the time. We talk about it every week on this show. They're getting killed on a weekly basis or being attacked on, every 2 or 3 days. And these aren't just like, all right, I'm gonna fight the cops and see who wins. No, they're being assaulted violently. They're being shot at, and it's a war on cops by the bad guys.
So I have gotten on my social media. For those of you that follow me, I'm on Facebook, Randy Sutton, public figure. I have gotten contacted by no less than 100 law enforcement officers since this shooting took place, this murder. And every single one of them has said the same thing, that they're afraid that he hesitated
Right.
because these officers who are writing to me say they are hesitant to use force. And that is because of the social climate
Right.
of the media attention destroying police officers who get in deadly force situations, and at the same time, spineless administrations who don't back their officers.
Exactly. And that trickle-down effect of that mindset from the administrators down to the foot soldiers that are out there engaging with these bad guys is causing them that hesitation because they don't want to get sued, they don't want to get prosecuted, they want to come home to their families. Officer Michael Chesna didn't get that opportunity.
It's so terribly sad
Yeah.
that the American law enforcement officer is facing. This is part of the war on cops.
It is.
Is the
It is.
social issues involving it, and we've got a lot more to talk about after the break, and we'll see you in just a minute.
But isn't the real issue here? No, the real issue. No. Your cousins would have been losers anyway. Oh! Caused that.
And they cover their face because they're nothing but a bunch of cowards.
So I'm calling bullshit.
Hi, welcome back to the Blue View with your host Randy Sutton.
Phil Ramos.
We've been talking about the violence towards law enforcement. We're going to continue to talk about that and some of the fallout. Chicago.
Unbelievable.
I mean, it seems that we're always talking about California, Chicago, or
D.C.
or Maryland,
Yeah.
Baltimore,
Yeah.
and once again Chicago. Chicago, of course, had hundreds and hundreds of young black men shot by young black men. There was an officer-involved shooting that took place just about 5 or 6 days ago. And before the body had been removed, there were protests and riots. The rumors got started that this individual who was shot was just a family man who was shot in the back by the racist police. And then there was another report came out that maybe he had a gun, but he had a CCW permit. And then we saw the videotape,
Right.
didn't we?
And the videotape, like 95% of the time, shows that the officers were 100% right. He was acting the fool. He did have a concealed weapon. And when the officers stopped to confront him, what does he do? He doesn't comply. Boom, the chase is on. He takes off, and what do you think is going to happen?
Well, and then, so in the video, once it slowed down, you can see him lift his shirt,
Right.
reach for the gun, and pull it out, and that's when officers open fire.
Yeah.
You can't get a more justifiable shooting.
And that's how the majority of these shootings go. All the time, just about every time. And we speak to it regularly. The people choose not to side with the officers. Oh, and by the way, in Chicago, at the same time, there were half a dozen murders. Black men being killed by black men, but you don't hear about that.
Not
you
a
don't
word.
complain about that.
Not a word.
It's just the white police officer killing the unarmed black man. Number one, he wasn't unarmed. Number two, he ran from the police during a felony situation.
And there were black and white police officers.
And there were
involved.
black and white police
So,
officers.
so now, the facts have come out.
Yep.
The video has come out. But do you think that's stopping the haters?
No.
I mean, where's the headline? There's a headline that I saw.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. After Chicago shooting, activists vow civil disruption until demands are met. And this is another reverend who is demanding that just all kinds of crazy stuff.
Right, well, and
it has nothing to do. It's not based in reality.
No, and as they show the crowd of protesters, which I'm sure, by the way, the collective IQ between all of them might be 200. It's ridiculous that they choose one isolated incident, which is completely justifiable, and completely ignore the fact that half a dozen of their brothers were killed by their brothers. Never a word said about that.
You know, and the I don't even like to call them protests. You know, the media.
Yeah.
The media refers to the guy who got shot, the guy who was trying to kill the police, as the victim. He's not a victim.
No,
he's a suspect.
And that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem. If he's 18 years old, they'll call him a young child.
Yeah.
You know, if he's 12 to 15 years old, he's this little boy.
Right.
But you know, the way these people who confront police officers and engage in fights with police officers are portrayed, they're always these up and coming guys who put their bad lives behind them, and now they're on their way to Harvard Law, and they got kids, and they were doing this and that. Bull. It's bull.
And here we go again, and with another, and you know, these aren't protesters; these are rioters.
Rioters.
When a protest is when people utilize their constitutional right to free speech to peacefully protest, to get a point of view across.
Right.
When you start bringing rocks, bottles filled with urine, bricks, and are willing to confront violently with law enforcement, you aren't a protester, you are a rioter. Now, so they have these big riots, 3 cops hurt, they make 4 arrests. 4 arrests. I would have had that bus filled
Exactly.
with those suspects.
Yeah, exactly. And
But you see, Rahm Emanuel and his minions are pulling the strings and not allowing the police to police. And that's the real reason why the murder rate
that's exactly
is insane in Chicago.
And across the country, as far as attacks on police, because they are allowing it to happen. The cops are going to defend themselves one way or another, whether it's by reacting to the violence with violence, which, you know, anybody who is aware of the use of force continuum knows you don't bring a knife to a gunfight. So it works both ways. If you want respect, give respect. If you're going to act a fool, you're going to be treated like a fool. That's all there is to it.
And when we saw every bit, here's the ultimate irony. I forgot to even mention this. The reason those officers were on foot patrol in that neighborhood was because the people in the neighborhood requested that the Chicago police put foot patrol officers in that neighborhood.
Right.
That's the ultimate irony here. The cops get a request because the real people, the good people who live down there, which is the vast majority, want to be protected from the thugs.
Exactly.
So they ask the police for help. The police send in patrol. The officers spot a guy with a gun, which is the whole reason that they're there.
Yep.
Confront him. The guy pulls a gun on him. They kill him, and now they're the bad guys.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's the paradox of positive, aggressive police work when it's required.
The insanity continues. We got to take a quick break, and then we will be back with some entertaining videos to show you.
Newsflash. Local attorney Paul Patter wins a $160 million verdict against a strip casino.
Paul Patter got me a $160 million verdict.
In a wreck, need a check? Don't settle for pennies on the dollar. At Paul Patter Law, we know how to win. We recently received one of the largest verdicts in Nevada history, $160 million. As I always say, don't get mad, get legal.
Paul Patter got me a $160 million verdict.
Hi, welcome back to the Blue View with your hosts Randy Sutton and Phil Ramos. This segment, we're going to look at stupid crook tricks. Now, we're going to be seeing this video for the first time, just like you are, and we're gonna check out what this is all about. It looks like a beach scene.
All blurring out.
All right, so it looks like the Police are.
So your parents?
Oh, this is in New Jersey.
Oh, your aunt's where's your aunt at?
Oh, yeah.
She's coming back? Cool. Do me a favor. Take a deep breath along with that, alright?
So they're giving this lady a breathalyzer. She appears to be underage, and I think that's what they were asking her, for ID after that.
Exactly.
Alright, do me a favor. Try one more time. Deep breath. Don't go so far in.
Is there a problem? Mind your business.
Mind your
Oh,
business.
mind your business. Now we go.
Alright, where's your aunt at? Do you have her phone number? How old are you?
I know that didn't come up positive. I didn't take a drink of anything, so.
Now, they've already seen her in possession of alcohol. That's why this whole thing is.
And right away with the attitude, because she knows she's getting busted. So, what do you think is going to
Right.
happen?
Now, the drinking age there is 21.
You go.
And by the way, these officers
Yo, guys.
are special officers.
She is of age.
They're seasonal, so they get hired
Oh,
by
for
the
the
police
summer.
departments just to patrol the beach areas for underage drinkers and such.
Right, okay. So she's walking away from the cops.
Alright. Go grab her real quick. We're gonna have them pour that all out.
Well, I got a little question as to why they let her walk away like that, but okay.
Second segment of this body cam video.
Well, where's your aunt at?
You're allowed to carry alcohol.
She's telling them, you're allowed to carry alcohol. No.
It's possession consumption.
It's not open.
Open display.
What do you mean that's open? You can see
it, yes.
Okay, you can see it, and we're not drinking.
Somebody on the yellow calendar the beach.
So she's escalating it. They're trying to keep her calm, and she's becoming more confrontational because,
As she lectures them on the law.
right, yeah.
Cool. What's your name?
And these guys are still being respectful.
What's your name? How about that? Yeah, you're not cooperating. Yeah.
I didn't disrespect you. I didn't do anything to get written up, did I?
Now your call's on the scene. You want it? All right. I'll give you one more chance to give me your last name. Okay.
I didn't disrespect you.
Okay.
And you don't even know my name down either.
So they're not showing her friend, who's being just as confrontational and argumentative with the cops, because they're just, making sure that they're of legal age and not supposed to be consuming alcohol on this beach. So what's the point of letting them bring alcohol to the beach if you don't?
Well,
don't know
mere
what-
possession is a violation. Now
Here we go.
Here we go.
What are you doing? Don't
Oh,
Boom.
okay.
That's where she shoved them.
That's not good. That.
So the struggle is on, and she's pushing them and telling them not to touch her in a very vulgar way. And now they're hooking her up.
And she's not putting her hands behind her back.
Nope, still fighting.
This is a perfect highlight of when somebody doesn't want to get handcuffed, how
Right.
difficult it is, no
Yeah.
matter how big they are or small they are.
Right.
Back the fuck up! Back up! Back up! Get over here now!
Is this why they have that television show, The Jersey Shore?
So here she is screaming and carrying on when all she had to
This
do was
reminds me
comply.
of that Tom Jones song. She's a lady.
Yeah. And they're still trying to get her. Look, see, she's burying that right arm so that they can't get her hands behind her to cuff her up, which all of this could have been avoided. All she had to do was cooperate. But no, she wants to be somebody that she's not. We get on TV, and you know the first call is going to an attorney. Give me some money for this.
She was on every talk show around, playing the victim,
Yeah.
lying. Oh, I didn't do anything.
Yeah, now she's changing her mind about I didn't do anything wrong.
Now, keep in mind, she's doing all this with her year and a half old baby there.
Yeah. Seeing mommy act very, very nice with the police. Now, of course, all this is going to be played in court, and it may show whoever's going to be sitting watching this exactly what her actions were instead of what she says they were.
Right.
And all the smart Alex
So
giving their
basically,
commentary.
what we have here, and this made national news.
Big time, yeah.
I saw her on like Good Morning America, and they were treating her like she was this
Brutalized by the
poor
police. Yeah.
innocent woman who didn't do anything wrong, and they're mollycoddling her, and once again creating the narrative that it's the police's fault
Yeah.
for everything.
Yeah, and skipping over the fact that number one, she wasn't cooperating with the police, and then as they try to get her to identify herself, she reaches out and shoves one of the cops.
I know.
And they make no mention of that.
No. And you saw the officer was just going to write her a ticket.
Right.
They were going to write her a ticket. You heard him say, we'll pour it out, write you a ticket, and that's going to be the end of it. But
No.
She had to go all Jersey Shore on him.
How did that work out for you? Well, we don't know yet.
Yeah, she'll probably get a payday out of
Yeah,
it.
she'll
somehow.
probably make a few bucks, go buy more booze, and go sit on another beach
Oh,
somewhere.
no. Wait a minute. I see a contract for a reality show. That's what I see in her future.
Well, God, let's hope not. We have enough of that stupidity on TV already.
Well, we want to thank you so much for tuning in to The Blue View, and we will see you again next week.
Take care.